got several microphones concealed under it. Would you like one to join in with?
Yes.
Okay. Reg was a lonely glowworm, all alone in the big city night. Lady glowworms didn't like him, never really thought him too bright. She was just a red glow in the gutter, alone, perhaps lonely like him. His heart simply melted like butter. Her light made all others seem dim. But tonight he would not be requited. Her warm love could never be Reggie's, for he was a lonely glowworm, and she was a Benson and Hedges. That last bit's the chorus. He asked did she come here often, asked if she fancied a drink. She might like a light ale. No reply, not a nod, not a wink. She was just a red glow in the gutter, smouldering, sultry, aloof. Not one single word did she utter, and Reg never guessed at the truth. It rhymes. His heart was aflame with desire, but her fire was a pyre. It was Reggie's, for he was a lonely glowworm, and she was a Benson and Hedges. He desperately wanted to know her there in the big city night, but there, like a moth to the flame, Reg was drawn to the light. She was just a red glow in the gutter, a beacon of love in the mist. She lay where some smoker had put her, and Reg could no longer resist. He burned more than his fingers that evening. Now he carries a torch with scorched edges, for he was a lonely glowworm, and she was a Benson and Hedges. He fell like a fool for a fag end. A passion can have strange effects, and his contact lenses were missing, and a tortoise had trod on his specs. She was just a red glow in the gutter, unmoved by wit, wisdom or wealth. Set a firefly on fire and a flutter, and seriously damaged his health. All she left was a small pile of charcoal. Remember those embers are Reggie's, for he was a lonely glowworm, and she was a Benson and Hedges. I'll do one for the dog.
It's wagging his tail already.
I'd always wanted a dog, so one day I took in a stray. He didn't want to leave me, and so I called him Stay. I knew it was a mistake. The first time I told Stay to go. Go, Stay! And I pointed, but did Stay go? No. Go, Stay, I said, and he started. He was going, and then he was not. He looked at me sad and confused, and two big eyes said, "What?" I threw him a stick. I said, "Fetch, Stay." He started and stopped all in one. I never got round to come here, Stay. Stay couldn't come, he'd not gone. He wanted to please, but he couldn't. I spoke, but he just didn't know. So I got him a spaniel for company. I shouldn't have called it. I said, stay, go. And go would stay a second, then both stay and go were away. I had to shout, come here, stay and go. They were coming and going all day. I said, stay, go and stay. I tried go, stay and go. Nothing seemed to get through. It's not they were both saying no. They were both saying, does he mean you? It's all very well in the park, but what if we stood at the curb? Two lost souls in the dark. Which one's the verb? I've got him a new friend now. I found him, a poor starving wretch. I think I've lost the element of surprise. I hope they'll be happy together. Go and stay, come and meet. Fish. Thank you. I've had a request for this one. Somebody wanted me to do it in Southampton about 3 weeks ago. So I'll do it as loud as I can. From far beneath the earth, deep, deep in the clay, you might sometimes hear a deep rumble, a voice underground that says, hey. The old ones understand. They hear the earth speak and they know that sometimes the earth says, I. And sometimes the earth says, oh. A Pacific volcano erupts, lava flows red to the seas, and rock and ash and earth fly through the air with the greatest of ease. It's the vowels of the earth. In places they spread far and wide. Maui, Hawaii, Oahu. They've come to the surface and dried. In times of prolonged drought, the length of a word may grow shorter. When it hasn't rained in Yorkshire for 6 weeks, there's no effing water. Two T's, an L, an N and an S were years ago wasted away. The lost consonants of Atlantis. Or A'i as we know it today. The earth is a teacher. We may listen and learn if we choose. The very first sound in the world was the sound of primordial. The earth teaches as well. Another new concept is born as from the four corners of the globe comes the idea that a globe has corners. I've been to the ends of the earth. I've gone where the wise never go. I've peered through the A's at the sea. Or as the French know it, oh. Blessed are the peacemokers. And much as I'd like to say yes, I've got nowhere to put it, so I cannot accept your largesse. I'm a beekeeper. Begone, O.S., you are unbecoming. Oh yes, I'm the great bee tender. And it can't be a bee, it's not humming. Are these vowels, you might ask? These are not, is what I will tell. And should you reply, oh idea, I will tell you, RDL. The vowels of the earth lie beneath us. If you listen, you'll hear them below, the land that belonged to some farmer. E, I, E, I. Thank you. I'll do a sad one. Where nature's seen at its wildest, out on the African plains, lost amongst the wildebeest and the springbok, chasing the seasonal rains, there once lived a family of zebras, a small group of sisters and brothers, and there was one who stood out from his fellows. Spot was not like the others. Somehow he stood out in long grass, where others somehow seemed to blend. When you're trying to hide from the lions, the zebra calls Spot's not your friend. Nature can play cruel tricks. You might see it as victimisation when the rest of your family are barcodes and you're just wild punctuation. Life can be hard when you're different. It's sad how cruel folk can be. Strange how the world can be hurtful to someone not like you or me. Spot may have been modest and clever, the fastest, the kindest, the best, but Spot was soon banished forever, for Spot was not like the rest. I went to his brothers and sisters to ask how all this came about. The trouble is, he's really a leopard. And we don't want to be there when he finds out. So he stands all alone in the grassland. Life's furrow alone he must plough. For Spot was not like the others. Spot was different somehow. Nobody's requested this. Ever. Deja vu. A rhyme. It is impossible to experience deja vu for the first time. I reckon the first time deja vu happens is the second. Deja vu. A rhyme. It is impossible to experience deja vu for the first time. I reckon the first time deja vu happens is the second. I started with verse 2. Verse 1 must stay unlistened because the first time you say deja vu, it isn't. But then, to get a little more immersed, you can't experience deja vu twice because you didn't experience it first. To recap, deja vu. A rhyme. I know what you're thinking. This is not the first time. 3 times and still it isn't true. How do you qualify? What do you have to do? How do you climb this mountain? Or you may think it just a hillock. You may think this man is a philosopher. Altogether, you may think this man is a pillock. I've been called a pillock before. Strange but true. When I hear the word pillock, to me it is a rhyme. It is impossible to experience deja vu for the first time. Then again, and this is interesting, there are those who say deja vu is a once-in-a-lifetime thing. Then they say it again. And at the risk of being a bore, if you go back to the first time deja vu happened, you'll think, that's happened before. We should explore the supernatural, put knowledge in place of mere feeling. Edinburgh University has a chair for the paranormal. They can't get it down off the ceiling. Too many gaps in our understanding. Is time travel a thing of the past? What was the best thing before sliced bread? How long does this poem last? But to return, as to an old friend, deja vu. The end. I used to tour America about 2 or 3 times a year, and every time I did that poem over there, I had to explain what a pillock is. That's probably why they keep electing them. I've got an occasional table. There it is over there. You can tell it's an occasional table. Today's its day off, it's a chair. I've got an occasional table. I can't seem to get it to settle. It's all been a bit unexpected. I thought I was buying a kettle. I took it upstairs on the bus. I always get the bus back from town. It was then it turned into a wardrobe. Took 6 of us to get it back down. I've got an occasional table, but some of the time I've not. I always rush me dinner. You never know how long you've got. I think I might have another. Excuse the element of doubt. It's the kind of occasional table that's only in when you're out. I thought if I had 2, they might breed. I really quite fancy a set. But with them both being occasional, I don't think they've actually met. I've got some occasional tables. I'm never quite sure where they are. I'd quite like to have a settee, but so far they've not gone so far. Sorry. I think therefore I am. All we believe stems from this, except my occasional table, which only occasionally is. Perhaps there's a parallel universe where they all go to live quite a lot, where they're called usual table, and only occasionally not. An infinite number of occasional tables would ensure there was always one there. I've got an occasional table. Look, here it is. It's a chair. Thank you. I'll do another sad one. It was a calm, still day in Yarmouth, the channel clear and wide, as the last of the timber sailing ships sailed out on the evening tide. They never saw that ship again. They searched when it was light, but that fine old timber vessel sank that clear and peaceful night. No one knows what happened on that night in 1910, but the crew and her cargo of woodpeckers were never seen again. I did that one a while ago back in England, and it went down really well, but then halfway through the next poem, somebody about halfway back on that side suddenly said, "Woodpeckers!" Long ago in an inflatable land, where the inflatable king and queen rule, an inflatable boy in the village of Elftown went to inflatable school. At 9 a.m. on the inflatable dot, inflatable lessons begin. Nobody knew the inflatable boy had got an inflatable pin. He kept it concealed in his satchel. No one there knew of their fate, till the boy ran amok in the staff room and teachers began to deflate. He then stuck his pin in the building. It was sharp and met little resistance. Just a hiss at the start, then a deafening fart, and the school flew off into the distance. Inflatable boys with inflatable pins. No inflatable parents get stroppy. The inflatable boy turned the pin on himself, and in no time at all he was floppy. He was saved by a man with a bicycle pump and a puncture repair kit to boot. But when he came round the next morning, by his bed was a man in a suit. Oh dread, the headmaster, half covered in plasters, alive but not up to full pressure. Not enough PSI, but pure wrath in his eye, filled not with air but displeasure. Now then, young man, the headmaster began, in the inflatable hospital in Elftown, you've let your teachers down. You've let your school down. And now you've let yourself down. Would you like another chorus? Okay. The word futile springs to mind. Mission impossible, yes, that's the attempt to harness for mankind the intelligence of cats. You've made a basic error, now let me expound. This master-servant thing's okay, but not that way round. We don't do the faithful subject. We don't do the daily grind. You should never have attempted this. Guide cats for the blind. Give Kitty so much trust and we'll abuse the privilege. You think you're going out? You're opening the fridge. You think I'm trying to help you? I'm not serving man but mammon. You think you've gained a faithful friend? You've lost a plate of salmon. I might lead you down the high street. I'll be back when I have dined. We get very, very hungry being guide cats for the blind. It can't be very pleasant, of this I've little doubt, to have your head stuck in the cat flap whether facing in or out. You could be here a day or two with half of you out in the rain. I've got to go, I've things to do. Maybe I'll pass this way again. A dog would go for help. Cats are not that way inclined. Cats have better things to do than being guide cats for the blind. Of some matters I am ignorant, but this I know for certain. The best place for a blind man isn't halfway up a curtain. And why do they have to be up on the roof at 4 a.m? It's the perfect place for me, but what's in it for them? It was where I had to go and he just tags along behind. I don't know why. Only a fool would follow guide cats for the blind. I once met a man called Pavlov. From time to time he rang a bell. Simple things make humans happy. But I have to say that, well, I found it a disturbance, and poor chap, I think he knew it. And soon he only rang his bell when I wanted him to do it. Did you ask for our assistance? If you did, well, we've declined. Here we are, an oxymoron. Guide cats for the blind. Thank you. I moved from Manchester into North Wales about 7 years ago. And until then, I'd never really had anything big enough to call a garden before, but when I moved, I suddenly found one. I got one about as long as this room, which was wonderful. So I thought, I'll have a go at gardening. So I did for about, nearly 2 weeks. And in that time, I learned a valuable lesson. I'd never had a garden, so I smiled all summer, watched it grow. Flowers came and flowers went with gifts of colour, shape and scent. And as I watched the seasons turn, I knew I had a lot to learn. One thought in my young head was placed: one must not waste one's garden waste. And so I bought a compost bin and put my garden waste therein, in hopes in time it would decay. And so it proved, and one spring day I spread it on my garden so the mulch would help my garden grow. And so it proved, for very soon I found I had to cut and prune. The garden waste that I had used made richer soil, but it's thus produced more garden waste. What can I do? I fill bin 1, I buy bin 2. And then I bought a third compost bin and put my garden waste therein, in hopes in time it would decay. And so it proved one April day. Bed and lawn, I mulched them both and watched in fear for signs of growth. And grow it did, for very soon I found I had to cut and prune and hack and strim and mow and chop another bloody bumper crop. A vintage year for garden waste, and soon the problem must be faced. I make a start, I fill bin 1, bins 2 and 3, the work goes on, for I have cut and gathered in enough to fill another bin. I went and bought bin number 4, but I'll not do this anymore. I go out every evening late, I sneak out through my garden gates and lay my treasure down instead on someone else's flower bed. And having thus enriched their loam, I steal their slugs and take them home. I see their gardens, how they grow. I look at mine, and does it? No. I watch them toil, I watch them weep. I close my eyes and go to sleep. I'll just do another couple, then I'll have a lie down for it. Well, I'll mention the shop. I've written 78 of these books this week. And they're $10 each, and there's lots of them down here. There's 2 in Welsh there, so you probably don't want them. If you can't afford $10, I've got some CDs at 25. There's not very many of them. I nearly sold out at the National, so there's just a few there. And then I've got my occasional table book and my periodic table book, both of which are there some of the time. And they're $35 each, or $93 for 2. I'll do one about growing old. I always have to be very careful not to look at anybody in particular. I was downstairs. I was composing, and for a moment I was stuck. But I knew if I went upstairs, I got the answer in a book. I started up the staircase. I was halfway to the top. I thought, what am I going upstairs for? This brought me to a stop. Now, if you're a bit forgetful, you must never stop halfway. To be in a state of inertia brings new questions into play. I find advancing years have placed a limit on my knowing, and without the clue of motion, I thought, which way was I going? My hands were empty, no clue there. I pondered with a frown. The odds were 50-50. I chose up instead of down. I felt a sense of achievement when I reached the upper floor, though I didn't know if I'd wanted to. Or if I did, what for? I didn't need the bathroom. That had not been my intent. But it gave my trip a purpose. And so being there, I returned downstairs. I needed that, which justified my climb. You may recall I didn't. I'd forgotten by this time. I was downstairs. I was composing, and at that moment I was struck by the blinding revelation that I'd been to find a book. I ran upstairs immediately, and there I quickly learned I'd been looking for a library book, which last week I had returned. I hurried to the library, mingled with the staff and the browsers. I was getting odd looks. I knew something was wrong. I came straight home and put on my trousers. Once more I returned to the library, went straight to the desk and explained why I came. I'm looking for a book on amnesia. I forget the author's name. The librarian shook his head sadly. Well, he said, you've got me there. We've got a whole shelf on the subject, but I can't remember where. If you try to find it yourself, he said gravely, there are dangers we dare not ignore. Unravel this ball of string as you go. We've lost people like you here before. I walked out to the car park. In left hand, book newly loaned, drove away in grey Ford Escort. Type of car I've never owned. I'm sure the owner understands. I'm sure the owner will forgive. His car is in the safest hands. Now, let me see. Where do I live? It's over now, I'm safely home. Car's gone for repairs. And I've got my library book and taken it upstairs. I feel a sense of deja vu. Me brain's mislaid a noun. I'm halfway up the stairs again. Or am I halfway down? I'll just do another one, then I'll come back again in the second half and do Deja Vu a few more times. Go placidly amid the noise and haste, and remember what peace there may be in silence. Do not walk behind me, for I may not lead. Do not walk in front, for I may not follow. Go over there somewhere. Speak your truth quietly and clearly. Be open-minded, but do not lean forward, or your brain may fall out. Know that there will be good days and there will be bad days, and this is one of them. Never accept a drink from a urologist. Always dismantle and clean the dog before going to bed. But avoid the use of spot remover. You may never see him again. You're a child of the universe. It is a small world unless you have to paint it. Do not wish for everything unless you have a really big cupboard. Avoid loud and aggressive persons. Sleep well. If you cannot sleep well, practice more often. Borrow from pessimists, they don't expect it back. Remember, if you give a man a fish, he will eat for a day. Teach him to fish and he will sit in a boat and drink himself stupid. It is always darkest before the dawn. That is the time to steal your neighbour's newspaper. Be gentle with yourself. Bear in mind that depression is anger without enthusiasm. And good health merely the slowest way to die. Never argue with a fool, for he is doing the same. Know that if at first you don't succeed, skydiving was not a good idea. Be yourself. If you cannot become wiser, try to be older. Never stand between the dog and the lamppost. And never hit a man with glasses. Always use something bigger and heavier. And remember that some people are only alive because it's illegal to kill them. A closed mouth gathers no feet. Nature abhors a vacuum cleaner. Be cheerful. Strive to be happy. And remember that your sole purpose in life is to serve as a warning to others. Go far and start as soon as possible. I'll start with the fourth one, it'll save us a bit of time. as you plough through the snows of December. Remember that poor Captain Scott. Wasn't he the second to reach the South Pole? Well, no, in fact, he was not. Roald Amundsen, he was the first, or that's what everyone reckoned. We've all been under a misapprehension. I've been told that Roald was second. When he arrived at his goal, a small patch of yellow snow marked it. For who was first to the pole? Spot of the Antarctic. It was an elementary mistake that put Roald out of the hunt. How can the man on the back of the sledge beat the dog ears tied to the front? But Spot was not a happy dog. A dog needs to go out for a run, but pulling a sledge all those miles through the snow, a walk round the park would have done. The sledge piled high, with a cooker, a fridge, a TV, and who had to cart it? It wasn't Roald who trudged through the cold. It was Spot of the Antarctic. Of course, Roald did all the planning. Strategy flowed from his mouth. "Which way shall we go today, Roald?" said Spot. And Roald said, and on the return journey, his keen mind again proved its worth. "Which way shall we go today, Roald?" said Spot. And Roald said, "No." All Spot had to do was pull the sledge, put the tent up, and as it got dark, it was whose job to cook Roald's supper? Spot of the Antarctic. "Me name used to be Ronald," said Roald. "But alas, I was a poor man. Had to sell me own end to finance the trip. I sold it to someone called Orman. I bought a tent and a sledge and a dog and set out to do it. Spot didn't like the Antarctic at first, but he's taken a Viking to it. I thought I'd be first to the pole. I got off my sledge and then parked it. I wanted to be first, but my heart's going to burst. It was Spot of the Antarctic." And halfway through the journey home, he spoke to his pet with regret. "I've miscalculated. Our food is all hated, and McDonald's haven't opened here yet." Not for Roald, the example of Oates, no bravely going out for a walk. He simply shouted, "Here, Spot," and got out his knife and fork. The dog may be gone, but the legend lives on. Down through the years, dogs have barked it. But who was first to the pole?
Spot of the Antarctic.
It was a sunny summer Sunday on a cliff top by the sea. I'd made myself a picnic lunch, some sandwiches and tea. I'd been there half an hour when I heard a sort of moan, and gradually it came to me that I was not alone. He was hanging by his fingers from the edge of the abyss. He'd been there quite some time. Now, let me tell you this. When it comes to cliff-top picnics, I find it pays to be particular. Always choose the horizontal part. Altogether, never the perpendicular. I could see he'd lost his tablecloth, his condiments as well. His teapot too was missing. He was upset, I could tell. There was no long preamble, no extended peroration. He limited himself to help by way of conversation. It's a very English thing, but as he hung above the sea by his fingertips, I asked him, "Would you like a cup of tea?" I poured the man a cup, and he was so elated, he took it from me straight away. Perhaps he should have waited. He clung on by his left hand. In his right, his cup of tea. His options were quite limited. His fate was up to me. In view of his position, my next move was not a smart one. I said to him, "Do you take milk?" and handed him the carton. I was afraid that he had gone to certain death so far beneath, but as he passed an overhanging branch, he clung on to it with his teeth. In his left hand, still the milk. In his right hand, still the cup. I leaned over the cliff top. I looked down. He looked up. When they asked, was it my fault? I must confess a great unease. I called down, "Do you take sugar?" He looked up and said, "Yes, please." You fancy another chorus? Right. Arnold was an armadillo, and oh so in need of romance. And it chanced that one Saturday evening, Arnold went out to a dance. The moment he walked in the room, he saw her, as if he had known she'd be there at the side of the stage. All he wanted, all in black, all alone. She was there, she was his, dressed to kill. Oh, if only his glasses were cleaner. For he was an armadillo, and she was a concertina. He struggled to make conversation. He leapfrogged from topic to topic. If only she'd say something back. If only he wasn't myopic. Bright silver buttons in rows from head down to toes in black leather. Could this beauty love him? Here goes, poor Arnold thought. It's now or never. He could picture her head on his pillow. He had loved her the moment he'd seen her. But he was an armadillo, and she was a concertina. You can't help but feel for the lad, though, how happy poor Arnold would be if they could make love in the shadow, and no one would see. Alas, what he hoped might have been a sweet secret was soured completely. Sex with a concertina is rarely accomplished discreetly. The dancers stopped stripping the willow. It was oh such a loud misdemeanour, for he was an armadillo, and she was a concertina. Picture love as a kind of concerto. Poor Arnold, his verse was unfinished. But what let everyone who was there know? A very loud C-sharp diminished. Somebody said, "Look, it's Arnold," and he ran from their scorn and their laughter into the darkness outside and never returned ever after. Tales of lost love and dreams unfulfilled. I was starting to get desperate by this point. Cruel Cupid, you've never been meaner, for he was an armadillo, and she was a concertina. Ooh, I did that one. Right. don't like my boomerang. I know what you're going to say. If you hate your boomerang so much, why don't you throw it away? That's all very well in theory. It may seem that simple to you. Why don't you throw your boomerang away? Because I threw it away yesterday too. There are times when life is not easy. There are days when the future looks black. There are days when you throw your boomerang away. There are days when your boomerang comes back. There are times it gets me down. Perhaps I shouldn't let it. What I can't understand is this. How did I ever get it? Sometimes when in the front garden I throw it, then hurry indoors. And within half an hour there's a ring on the bell and a small boy says, "Is this yours?" Once I got really angry. I taped some dynamite to it. And without really thinking things through, I lit the fuse and I threw it. With hindsight, this was an error. We learn lessons from life. I was taught it is better to think before throwing your boomerang. Never think after you've caught it. I've resorted to desperate measures. Sometimes when I throw the stick, I try to move house before it comes back. But you can't get a mortgage that quick. I had a Jack Russell Terrier once. I used to call him Jack. I used to throw my boomerang for him. The stick used to bring the dog back. I've seen the stickers in car windows and it gets me right here like a knife. A boomerang's not just for Christmas. A boomerang is for life. Fancy another chorus? Once my soul was filled with anger, no place for peace in me somehow. To me, serene was just a malt loaf, and Zen was just not now. Then I found Shitzu. I have solved life's Rubik's Cube. My karma had a puncture. I have found my inner tube. Shitzu has changed my life. I find it almost holy to be waving a small dog around. Very, very slowly. We stand in lines at dawn, silent in the park, waving a small dog in a slow and perfect arc. Or if time be at a premium, tranquility may be found by putting them on leads and whirling them around. I find my ire is lower. I am cured of melancholy by waving a small dog around. Very, very slowly. On Sundays you will find us in our driveways. There we are. We dip the dog in soapy water and slowly shampoo the car. We care not for your scorn, for we have the antidote. We take a small dog and we ram it down your throat. What wards off influenza? What keeps away E. coli? waving a small dog around. Very, very slowly. And if you have a guide dog, don't be shy now. Have a go. Lift it overhead and slowly wave it to and fro. Rotate it anti-clockwise, slowly and with grace. If only you could see the look upon its face. Some have usually made muesli. I will stick to guacamole and waving a small dog around. Very, very slowly. I've been a party to karate, do jiu-jitsu, and I fear the Scandinavian martial arts of taekwondo, feng shui, IKEA. Tai Chi may seem to thee to be the way. No, I say nay, and I go on to say to you that they be they who do Shitzu and do not know their dog has gone. This beats Kendo, Shinto, Vimto, Ludo, Cluedo, Monopoly. I'm waving a small dog around.
Very, very slowly.
I don't know where I've put it. I've looked, but I've not found it yet. It's somewhere in the garden. I can't find me camouflage net. It's a sort of greeny colour. Very much like the lawn. It's somewhere in the garden, but I don't know where it's gone. You can buy 'em in packs of a dozen. It's not long since I had the set. You just put 'em down and they vanish. I can't find me camouflage net. I ordered them from the Army and Navy stores. I had to go back and remind them. They said they hadn't forgotten. Altogether, they said they just couldn't. It's a good job you don't have to feed them. I suppose they'd make a good pet. Except they don't come when you call them. I can't find me camouflage net. I draped one over the transit. That's when the trouble began. I'd go back to the shop for another. I would, but I can't find the van. It's only a bloody tarpaulin. I haven't found it yet. I wish they'd make 'em bright orange. I can't find me camouflage net. Right. I'll do a difficult one. Far away to the west, where the great birds of Buffalo winder the plume, lose the laugh off lind of Dyslexia. To most people largely unknown. The 51st stoat of the onion, the date most here to my start, that lies betwixt origami and nirvana, east of the San Andreas fart. Tub. There are unexplained thermometer, extra restistricals, OFUs, that never appear in the poopers that are knit on the NNC news. Tolls of the paranorman, thongs that go on rindy bout there, and where are they copped? In the Y files. Duluth is out there. Ever since the Boston U Party. And Paul reverses rhetorical hide from Loxington to concrete. What's a stoat that no one can fide? The mossing far on the far bangled spanner. The wind that they mossed off the flog. Dyslexia, the place we'd all visit if only we knew where to hog. From the home of Harlot O'Scara. To the bonks of the I-ho-I, in the twin Twex and Sotties of salad and forthwith, Dyslexia is filed under Y. Her fakes are a fisherman's paradise. There's slammin', there's crap and there's trout there. And at the back end of Lake Posterior they say, Duluth is out there. A few weeks ago, back home in Wrexham, I went into a newsagent's and I saw a fishing magazine called Total Carp. Tub. Player is this waste, where can it see? Mott is the weaning of loof. Who tells us it's 24? Who goes in search of Duluth? The CAI, the FIB, the Instonian Smithstitute Lubbery, the entire resources of Washington CD, and principally Mouldy and Scullery. The Y-files hold the secrets that flow through the pen of the poet, as the avocado flows through the Grand Canyon. It's spelling, Jim, but not as we know it. It could be something big, they say. Perhaps there's an elephant of doubt there. There's more to this than meets the J. Duluth is out there. Tub. In the land of Sylvester Testosterone. Since the days of Capone and his gangsters, some have said we are not alone. Some say there are Eileens amongst us. It's my favourite bit. In the land of Forrest Gump, Peaklahoma, Esconsaw, Michigan Impossible, and Clark Bagel to name but four. We can all trut our post in Mouldy and Scullery. They will not stand their Ridley. In the home of Robert Zimmerframe, the man who found fame as Bob Diddley. Where the wrong letters missing in Hollywood. May the horse be with you. Go out where no one voted for George W. Bush. Duluth is out there. A few years back, I did a gig in Mobile, Alabama. It's an odd place. They've got this really huge building. It's about 100 yards long and about 60 yards wide, and there's 4 or 5 stories. And it's made of massive granite blocks. And above the door it says, Mobile Library. But while I was there, I did that last poem, and it was really good because there was a woman at this end of the stage doing signing for the deaf. We were there for hours. She was a beginner. I'd had this email from my agent saying she was going to be there and could I send her some examples of my work. So I sent her that one, to be fair to her. And before she came on stage, all her friends came up and gave her a big hug. And then she spent most of the time stood over at this end going... Here's another one you can join in with. On a cold, rainy night on a Liverpool quayside, in the years before the Great War, the world was in shock at the loss of Titanic. So proud had they been days before. Relatives gathered for news of their loved ones, to read through the list of the dead. When into the throng came a sad-eyed old polar bear, and to the clerk at the counter he said, "Have you got any news of the iceberg?" My family were on it, you see. Have you got any news of the iceberg? They mean the whole world to me. My wife and my children were coming from Greenland to be by my side in the zoo. Belinda's my wife, and the eldest called Bernard, and Billy, well, he's only 2. I know on the ship there were hundreds of people, and I know the iceberg's not yours. The polar bear's eyes held the start of his teardrops, and he covered his face with his paws. Have you got any news of the iceberg? My family were on it, you see. Have you got any news of the iceberg? They mean the whole world to me. It's been over a year since I last saw my children. I left home to build my career. I've worked very hard. I'm a star in the circus. It's all been for nothing, I fear. That's my face on the poster. We're in town this week. My children were meeting me here. Everyone watched as he struggled to speak, and his paw brushed away one more tear. Have you got any news of the iceberg? My family were on it. Have you got any news of the iceberg? They mean the whole world to me. By now all the people had gathered beside him. His grief was one they could share. The people around him in silence and sadness listened to the sad polar bear. I wanted my children to see me performing, and Belinda, she would have been proud. At last, lost for words and his tears flowing freely, the question was asked by the crowd. Have you got any news of the iceberg? My family were on it, you see. Have you got any news of the iceberg? They mean the whole world to me. Thank you. Are you ready for a spiritual? Brothers and sisters, I speak to you today in the church of the Holy Undecided. I want to hear you say, yeah. Yeah. I want to hear you say, no. No. We are gathered here together, sister side by side with brother, to proclaim we are agnostic, don't know one way or the other. In this we won't be shaken, though hard the winds may blow. In doubt we are united, and we cry, we do not know. Brothers and sisters, I want to hear you say, to hear you say, there are two sides to this, you know. We hold no fear of persecution. It pains us not to be derided as we stand here in the church of the holy undecided. Oh, my brothers and my sisters, I know I speak for you when I say we know for certain that we haven't got a Brothers and sisters, I want to hear you say, it's beyond my comprehension.
It's beyond my comprehension.
I want to hear you say, it's a bugger, isn't it? I believe that some believe just their beliefs are true. Do I believe what they believe? I don't believe I do. Oh, my friends, be ye contented, for ignorance is bliss. We stand foursquare behind our message, and we don't know what it is. Brothers and sisters, I want to hear you say, I am not a sheep.
I am not a sheep.
I want to hear you say, I will not mindlessly do everything I am told. You're not going to do it, are you? They always do in America. We know that we don't know, so let our vision still be pure. We are agnostic fundamentalists. We're fundamentally unsure. Peace, my sisters and my brothers. The agnostic does not smite. We are tolerant of others. There's a chance they might be right. Brothers and sisters, I want to hear you say, death to nobody whatsoever. I want to hear you say, the infidel might have a good point, you know. Well, you ought to clap now. I've had a request for this one. It's one I wrote for Fairbridge Folk Festival a few years back for a poetry debate. I had to debate that sex is better than poetry. So I asked a few friends. What's poetry like? Sometimes I wander down memory lane. Some things spring to mind straight away. Sex in a previous century is more vivid than poetry today. I remember Helen and Julie was fun, and evenings with Evelyn were ace. But Shakespeare and Milton and Wordsworth and Donne disappeared forever, no trace. Who here has been rendered ecstatic by Betjeman, Byron or Scott? Is poetry better than sex? No, it's bloody well not. Words it was not, it was women who took those sweet years of my time. I never went down to the pub to see if two sentences rhymed. Nights down dark lanes in the back seats of cars. Was it poetry that gave our hearts wings? Was it poetry that steamed up the windows? Was it poetry that tested the springs? Did the thrill of iambic pentameter keep the fires of our passion red hot? Is poetry better than sex? No, it's bloody well not. Does my soul sing out for, say, Shelley? No, his verses are just so much froth. Should we have more sex on the telly? Yes, though I keep falling off. I was all right till he started making those flat screens. That was it. If you were alone in some faraway place and the evening was starting to drag, if you had to choose, which would you refuse, a Lady of Shalott or a shag? By the latter, in clarification, I did not mean a guillemot. Is poetry better than sex? No, it's bloody well not. If poetry was better than sex, there'd be a torrent of spam sent upon it. Make your limerick last half an hour. Add an extra 4 lines to your sonnet. There's no you are not Longfellow. The opposite sex will not like you. They want a man with a big soliloquy and you've only got a haiku. Does it matter how long a man's poem? No, indeed, not a jot. Is poetry better than sex? No, it's bloody well not. Have I passed long years of pure pleasure in pursuit of the most perfect rhyme? Oh no, that to me is no treasure. Procreation's been the thief of my time. And when I've got something to say, a passion I need to express, do I care over much about scansion and rhyme? No. What are words when two souls might be dancing that sweet horizontal gavotte? Is poetry better than sex? No, it's bloody well not. The Odyssey, the Iliad, in days far behind, did I seek out girls who could quote 'em? Is the way to my heart through the doors of my mind? No, like most men, I'm led by the scrotum. I get quite confused when I see a hand used to write verse, whether rhyming or blank. Some other employment would bring more enjoyment. That's what I think, to be frank. The day that I'm cursed with a preference for verse, you can order my hearse on the spot. Is poetry better than sex? No, it's very well not. Thank you. I'll finish off with the last one. Oh, that's an idea. As you walk the road of this life, never forget that the journey of 100,000 paces begins with a flat tire and a broken fan belt. Remember that if the brakes can't be repaired, you can always make the horn louder. And sometimes on a sunny day, let the dog drive and you put your head out of the window. Never suffer from insanity. Enjoy it. And never criticise your fellow man until you've walked a mile in his shoes. Then if he doesn't like it, you're a mile away and you've got his shoes. When in a general store, never ask for anything in particular. Never go into a bookshop and ask them to help you to find a book on self-help. And never criticise the post office. One day they may find out where you live. Learn that we never learn from the mistakes of others. Try to make them all yourself. Remember that all experience is gained just after you need it. Recognise a mistake when you make it again. It is a rare man who never makes the same mistake once. And know that you will never ever forget that which you never really needed to know. Be sure that one day the world will beat a path to your door. You'll be in the bath. And never keep small breakable items in the hallway. One day your ship will come in. Bear in mind that double negatives are a complete no-no. From time to time you'll be told there's no such thing as a double positive. Yeah, right. Essential oils are not really necessary. It is possible to play a harmonica by driving really fast and holding it out of the window. Remember that although the early bird gets the worm, the second mouse gets the cheese. Behind every successful man is a surprised woman. Always gets a bit of a mixed response, that one. When you've seen one shopping centre, you've seen them all. One day you'll learn the value of time. If time did not exist, everything would happen at once. And know that one day you'll look around and think to yourself, this is the place to be. It's not, it's the verb to be. And with the coming of old age, remember that if God had wanted you to touch your toes, he would have put them on your knees. If God had wanted me to eat muesli, he would have made it smell like bacon. With the coming of old age, you will know all the answers, but nobody will ask you the questions anymore. And with the coming of old age, you will one day find a suppository in your ear. At that moment, you'll realise where your hearing aid is. And finally, as you lie alone on your bed and stare in wonder at the countless millions of stars shining in the night sky, you'll realise that only one question really matters. Where's the ceiling? Deja Vu. No, that wouldn't be fair, would it? Each night she's on the balcony. He loves her from afar. His soft, sad eyes are hypnotised. She shines down like a star. His heart will break forever. His kind can't have affairs. For Dachshunds with erections can't climb stairs. This is another good one to do with a signer. His home's a humble bungalow, and hers a penthouse flat. He cannot go where she can go, and that, they say, is that. He never can be near her, although she knows he cares. For Dachshunds with erections can't climb stairs. You want to win a woman, just be cool, be aloof. The dog who doesn't hit the stairs can make it to the roof. The dog who doesn't care will be the dog who wins the day. You'll never get to heaven with your chopper in the way. The spirit soars, the body falls, and heavy lies the heart that cries out with the pain of love. Be still, my broken part. How painful is the passion, and painful the repairs. For Dachshunds with erections. Thank you. Good night.